Hello everyone, Hare Krishna. Welcome to our Bhagavad Gita discussion. Thank you for everyone who has joined on the call, and thank you to those who will be listening to this conversation, this discussion later on. I welcome one and all. We are continuing our discussions on the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. We are looking at the arguments, the responses to the arguments that Arjuna raised, and specifically the analytical study of the soul. And from an analytical perspective, Krishna is trying to explain to Arjuna regarding why he should continue fighting and why he should pick up his weapons and fight instead of having thoughts of giving up his duty and then running away. So I'll start with quick prayers and reading. We'll keep it short today, and we'll continue onwards when more people will join next time. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet. Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Alright, so we looked at until verse number 20th, right? So I'll give a quick recap of the first of some of the verses. We'll keep it quick. Again, the battle is set. Right, Krishna, Arjuna and the Pandavas are on one side of the army. The other side of the army is the Kauravas, led by Duryodhana, Dhritarashtra, the sons of Dhritarashtra, Duryodhana, Dushasana, and his guru, and his great-grandfather, right, Bhishma, and his guru Dronacharya. They are all arraigned on the field, and they're about to fight. And Arjuna is saying, I can't fight. I don't know, because I am feeling compassion for them. Secondly, if we kill them, then who will lead the kingdom? There will be lots of problems in the social structure. Women and children won't be protected, and as a result, what's going to happen is there is going to be abuse and fall down. We'll accumulate negative karmic reactions, and it's not good fighting with these superiors. So therefore, Krishna, I don't want to fight. My mind cannot think straight, right? So all of these arguments were raised by Arjuna. He also said that I can live by begging rather than killing them. I don't know if I should be conquered by them or should I conquer them. I am truly and utterly confused, losing all my composure. I don't know what to do. Therefore, I am your disciple. So we saw the point that taking expert counsel, taking guidance from a guru, a teacher, somebody who knows, somebody who is wise, and somebody who can instruct, that is the right thing to do in times of crisis, right? We can't solve material problems with material consciousness. We need a spiritual consciousness to solve these problems. So therefore, Arjuna said that I can't find any means to drive away this grief. I can't dispel. Even if we win this kingdom, I won't be able to enjoy it. Therefore, I shall not fight. So Krishna here smiling, he starts speaking, right? Krishna speaks that you are worthy, you are a fool. You are speaking learned words, but you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief, which is a nice way of saying that, Arjuna, you are a fool. The wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead, right? Because you have always existed. They have always existed, and they will all continue to exist. You will continue to exist. Why? Because you are a soul, right? As the soul passes from one body, from your boyhood to the youth body to your old age, similarly, the soul passes into another time at death. So a sober person is not bewildered by such a change. So Arjuna, why are you getting bewildered right now? You shouldn't be bewildered at all. The soul passes. That's the nature of the soul. It comes into It comes into a body, leads its life, and then passes away into oblivion, into another body, and the cycle continues. So you are mourning for body, but actually they are not the body. They are the soul, and the soul never dies. Secondly, Krishna says that Arjuna, learn to tolerate, right? Happiness and distress, they come and go. just like winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception because you are understanding, because you are identifying with the body and you are identifying everything that is happening to the body. It's your sense perception that is causing happiness and distress. Therefore, Arjuna, learn to tolerate without getting disturbed, right? Then Krishna says that one who learns to tolerate is steady, dhira, and he is certainly eligible for liberation, right? Then finally, Krishna says that Arjuna, this soul is eternal. There's no change. It always remains as it has always been. And the body, it's non-existent, right? There's no endurance. So therefore, don't worry about the body. Think about their eternality and do your duty. Then Krishna gives some more analytical ideas regarding the soul. He says that this soul, the presence of the soul is detected by the presence of its the ability of the soul to pervade the entire body. That's what makes the soul to be indestructible. Why? Because it is basically consciousness. It is the seat of the consciousness, and this consciousness which is present throughout the body is a reflection of the soul. It's an effect of the soul. So therefore, Arjuna, understand that this soul is indestructible. Nobody can destroy it. So you should not worry at all. This soul is indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal, right? The body comes to an end, but the living entity, which is indestructible, immeasurable, eternal, cannot come to an end. Therefore, fight, do your duty, right? Then he says that if somebody thinks that the living entity slays, or somebody who thinks that living entity gets slain, they are both foolish, because the living entity cannot kill, neither it can be killed. So both cannot happen. Actually, Krishna further explains that this is happening by the modes of material nature. The modes are working in such a way which gives you the illusion that you are the body and you are running around the body and you are doing things in the body, but actually it's the modes, right? And finally Krishna says that the soul never takes birth, never dies. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. Right, a very popular verse from the Bhagavad Gita, na jayate mriyate va kadachin, nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuyah, ajo nityo shashvato yam purano, na hanyate hanyamane sharire. That, dear Arjun, the soul does not come into being, has not come into being, and will not come into being. That means he has always existed, eternal. This body is temporary, it comes and it goes. We are seeing deaths every single day. In the Mahabharata, King Yudhishthir was asked by Yaksha that King Yudhishthir, what is the number one thing that surprises you the most? And Yudhishthira responded that my dear Yaksha, I am seeing every single day so many people die and other people go and put their body, cremate their body or bury their body, and they come back. And they think that this situation will not arise for them. And this is the most wonderful thing in the world, or wondrous thing in the world. That makes me truly wonder. So we are seeing deaths of other people all around every day, but we don't think that it will happen to us at some point in time. Secondly, we think that the person actually is dead, but actually that's not the case. The death is only of the body, right? We say that he has left, but where has he left? The body is still here. So it's actually the living entity that is passed on. So the living entity is unborn, eternal, ever existing, and primeval. He's not slain when the body is slain. So now we'll look at 2 to 3 more verses of this before continuing next time. So I'll start with verse number 21. Oops. This looks like something went wrong. Facing a weird timeout error. Anyway, I know the verse, so I can read the verse, and then whenever the internet comes back on, we'll continue. So the verse is Vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya navani grinati naroparani tatha sharirani vihaya jirnani anyani samyati navani dehi. So what does what is Krishna saying? Krishna is saying that vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya. That means that as a person gives up old garments and accepts new garments, the soul similarly gives up old and useless bodies and attains new bodies. There's another book where we can find this. So Bhagavad Gita. Here we go. Wow. The website timed out right at the exact moment when we were discussing. Okay, here's the Bhagavad Gita. So we go to Bhagavad Gita, second chapter, verse number 22. Sorry, 21. I'm sorry, I actually recited verse number 22, but it's actually verse number 21. Sorry for the confusion. Yeah, so we looked at this verse, right? Verse number 21. Veda vinashinam nityam ya enam ajamavyayam katham sa purusha partha kam ghatayati hantikam. Veda in knowledge, avinashinam indestructible, nityam always, yaha one who, enam this soul, ajam unborn, avyayam immutable, katham how, saha he. Purusha person, partha O partha Arjuna, come whom, Gatayati hurts, Hanti kills. Come whom? Translation. O Partha, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, unborn and eternal and immutable kill anyone or cause anyone to kill, right? So Krishna is raising that Arjuna, having understood that the soul, it's indestructible, unborn, eternal and immutable. It can't change. It forever exists. It does not come into being and it's indestructible. Then how can in that existence kill anybody or cause anyone to kill, right? So therefore, don't worry, perform your duty, right? In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that everything has a proper utility, and somebody who is situated in complete knowledge knows how and where to apply a thing for its utility. So similarly, in this situation, violence is the utility. They have tried every single thing that was possible for them. They tried peacemaking, they tried division of the land, they tried equitable division, they tried applying the Vedic principles, but none of that worked out, right? And at that point, they have to come to violence. And because they had to come to violence, now the thing is, it has to find its utility. And Arjuna, being a Kshatriya, it was his duty to fight. Therefore, it was the duty. It has to be done. And so, everything has a utility once for somebody who is situated in knowledge, right? In the Manu Samhita, it is said that that sometimes capital punishment is awarded, right? So capital punishment today might be condemned for a person who has performed murder. Capital punishment is given. The Manu Samhita explains that this is needed sometimes. Why? So that person does not have to suffer in the next life. Because the Bhagavad Gita looks at a continuum, right? It doesn't look at one lifetime in and of itself, right? The Bhagavad Gita doesn't attribute to the idea of you only live once. No. The Bhagavad Gita says that because as a living entity, you are eternal, you have been in bodies, and now you are in this present body, in this situation, and you will continue to be in other bodies based on your desires and your thoughts. So, if somebody has committed a murder right now, he's given the punishment so that he doesn't have to suffer in his next life. Otherwise, if somebody who has committed a murder, and who has not faced the consequences, or as they say, has not faced the music for it, then in this life maybe he has not faced it, but in the next life he has to face his karmic reaction. So therefore everything has a utility. Capital punishment has a utility, not that we abuse it, but it has to be performed according to time, place, circumstances, according to the Vedic injunctions and according to the situation at hand. Krishna and Arjuna tried avoiding the war, right? But when it became unavoidable, when it had to come to the war, the situation of a battle, they had to do it, right? That was the duty. So therefore, that's what it's explained here, right? That actually this is not violence at all, right? Because nobody can be killed. What this is like a surgical operation, right? So what Krishna is doing is he's performing this surgical operation in one way, so that he can get rid of the harmful elements in the society, because they were not adhering to any other rules. So when it doesn't work, you have to take up your weapons and to explain. and you have to perform your duty, but you are still not killing the soul. You are getting rid of their negative reactions through the body so that they move on, those living entities move on to a different body, and Arjuna can establish dharma and religious principles here. Okay, so verse number 22, this is the verse that I read. Vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya navani grinati naroparani tatha sharirani vihaya jirnani anyani samyati navani dehi. Vasamsi, garments, jirnani, old and worn out, yatha, as it is, vihaya, giving up, navani, new garments, grinati, does accept, naraha, a man, aparani, other, tatha, in the same way, sharirani, bodies, vihaya, giving up, jirnani, old and useless, anyani, different, samyati, verily accepts, navani, new sets, dehi, the embodied. So what is Krishna saying? He's saying that as a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, similarly the soul accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. So when this body is useless, when there's nothing that can be done with this body, then at that point what happens? You give that up. So when this body becomes old and useless and all the organs are failing, the living entity leaves the body and the living entity takes on another body. So this is going on in the world. So Krishna is further giving an elaboration that Arjuna, don't worry, don't think that you are going to kill them. If their body becomes useless, then they will move on to the next body. That is the nature of this material world. Right? This soul has gone from childhood to boyhood, and to youth to old age. And old age, it is transferred to another body. This has already been explained in a previous work. Right? This is an atomic soul. So this atomic soul actually, and the proof of the soul is consciousness, right? And this consciousness is something, if you even look from a scientific perspective, that is something that is, it's not very well understood even today. They have described various ways of looking at consciousness from artificial intelligence, cognitive science, right? Different ways. But still it's not been understood properly. The reason being that it does not conform to the material calculations. We can detect it, but we cannot measure it, and that's why, because the reason we cannot measure it is because it is subtler than our material elements that we have, our material modes of experiment and measurement that we have. Therefore we can see the symptom of it, right? Through the blood we can see how something is conscious, we can look at life symptoms, but there's no way for us to measure at this point in time. Maybe in the future the scientists may develop these techniques, right? But the point being that consciousness is the proof of the soul. And this consciousness leaves, when the soul leaves the body remains unconscious, and you cannot bring that consciousness back, right? And then it moves on. So similarly, Krishna is explaining that, Arjuna, it's like wearing clothes. Just like you put on new clothes and give up old ones, similarly, this is all like clothes. So don't worry. When the time to change your clothes appears, you have to do it, right? The living entities appear in the morning of Brahma, again going back to the cosmic time scale, and then they disappear in the evening, then the night of Brahma. So similarly, just like we wear clothes in the morning after we get freshened up, and then in the evening we take them off and change them, right? Because they are not needed, and put on new ones. Similarly, this body, the living entity lives in the body, but when the body becomes useless, the living entity gives up the body and goes on to the next body. Right? Prabhupada further gives further examples, specifically from Katha Upanishad and Shvetashvatara Upanishad. These are two great texts that we have in the Vedic canon, Vedic philosophical canon. They talk about that, they give an analogy, right? They give an analogy that there is a tree. On that tree there are two birds. Now there are two birds. So one bird, what is that bird doing? The first bird is fully engrossed, right? In anxiety and moroseness. And it considers itself as the enjoyer of the fruits of the tree, right? But on the other side, there is a second bird which is completely sitting peacefully, and free from all anxieties. And the Vedic verse, the analogy explains that the moment this first bird turns to the second bird, which is peaceful in nature, it achieves all kinds of peace. But as long as it's not turning to the second bird and is looking for fruits and is pining for anxiety, it remains in anxiety and suffering. The point being that this body is like a tree. On this body, this tree, we have two birds. The first is the living entity, right? That's the bird that is trying to find its meaning. It's trying to understand, who am I? Trying to look for the fruits of the tree, so that the fruits that the body can enjoy, the bird can enjoy. The second bird is the super spirit or super soul, also known as the divine conscious presence in our body or the Paramatma in the body. And that is where our true connection lies, actually, connecting with that supreme divine conscious source. But because we are not connected to that supreme divine conscious source, we are anxious. And the moment we turn our attention to him and understand who he is and what is our connection to him, we become peaceful. That is self-realization, understanding who we are in relationship to our conscious source, right? The moment we understand that, currently we don't understand that, we have forgotten that. That's why we are in anxiety. That's why we take up these bodies and we give up these bodies, and it goes on and on and on. But the moment we establish this connection with that conscious source, we become immediately peaceful and free from all anxiety. That's what this verse is saying, that this suffering bird becomes free from all anxiety. This is the verse. Samane viriksha purusho nimagno nishaya shochati muheya manaha jushtam yada pashyati anyamishamasya mahimanamiti vita shokaha. That this bird becomes free from the anxieties. So therefore, Krishna is telling Arjuna that, dear Arjun, don't worry. These bodies, they come and go. You give up and you take and you give up. Don't worry about them. Perform your duty, irrespective of the bodily understanding. And just do as I say. And you will establish dharma and you will escape the reaction. So he goes on further explaining that. So again, here's the analytical study. Another verse. So verse number 23 that Krishna talks about. What does he say? Nanam chindanti shastrani, nanam dahati pavaka, na chainam kledayanti apo, na shoshanti marutaha. Na, never, enam, unto this soul. Chindanti, can cut into pieces. Shastrani, all weapons. Na, never, enam, unto this soul. Dahati, burns. Pavakaha, fire. Na, never. Cha, also. Enam, unto this soul. Kledayanti, moistens. Apaha, water. Na, never. Shoshayanti, dries. Marutaha, wind. Translation. The soul can never be cut into pieces by any weapon, nor can he be burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by wind. So Krishna is giving further example of the soul. What is he saying? That this soul can never be cut into pieces by any weapon. So you cannot take the soul and just divide. All right, I'm cutting the soul into 3 pieces. That's not possible. Nor can you burn it by fire. So nor can you moisten it by water, nor can you wither it by wind. Basically, what Krishna is trying to tell here is that this soul is transcendental to these lower elemental principles. For example, the Greek version or the Vedic version, as also talks about this, is that the universe, the material aspects of the universe are composed of these 5 elements, right? Earth, air, water, fire, and ether. So that's why Krishna is explaining that, understand that this soul is beyond all of these principles and elements. That's why he's saying you cannot cut it by any weapon, which is the earth element. You cannot burn it by fire, which is the fire element. You cannot moisten it by water, which is the water element, and you cannot wither it by the wind. It cannot carry away. It remains in a transcendental state. So therefore, dear Arjuna, if you think that you'll kill their soul, you are highly mistaken. That is not possible. You can never do it. Right? That's the point. So this is the nature of the eternal soul. Nuclear weapons also cannot kill the soul. They can kill the body, but not the soul, right? The individual soul is transcendental. And as transcendental part of our eternal conscious source, nothing can happen to the soul. It is unborn, eternal, indestructible, and forever lives, right? That's the nature of the soul. Let's do one more verse before I conclude. Actually, I'll do until verse 25 because they are all describing the nature of the soul. So let's do 2 more verses. Achedyoyam adahoyam. Sorry, once again. Achedyoyam adahoyam ekladyo shoshaya evacha nitya sarvagata sthanur achaloyam sanatana. Achedya, unbreakable. Ayam, this soul. Adayaha, cannot be burned. Ayam, this soul. Akledayaha, insoluble. Ashoshayaha, cannot be dried. Eva, certainly. Cha, and Nitya, everlasting. Sarvagataha, all pervading. Sthanu, unchangeable. Achalaha, immovable. Ayam, this soul. Sanatanaha, eternally the same. Translation. This individual soul is unbreakable and insoluble and can be neither burned nor dried. He is everlasting, all-pervading, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same. So see, Krishna is driving home the point, right? He's on the battlefield, right? They're sitting in the chariot. The battle is about to begin, but Krishna is giving highly philosophical points to Arjuna. So we have to see the context also when we are discussing these things. What is he saying? It is unbreakable. It is insoluble. It cannot be burned. It cannot be dried. It is everlasting, all pervading. It pervades. It's unchangeable. It's immovable, and it's eternally the same, right? So these are the qualifications of the atomic soul that is described here, right? So Arjuna, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, right? Another point here is the importance of the word sarvagataha. That means that it is all pervading, because the living entities are over all of the creation. They are in the land, they're on the land, right? They're in the water, we see fishes, they're in the air, we see viruses and bacteria, they are within the earth, and they are even within the fire, right? But they are not killed and they are not affected by these things. They just move on from one body to the another body. They are never killed that way, right? That's the point. Verse number 25. I think 25 is the final version of the nature of the soul, and then Krishna extends this argument further. So we'll look at the final argument regarding the nature of the soul, and then we'll conclude. Avyaktoyam achintyoyam avikaryoyam uchyate tasmadevam viditvainam nanushoche tumarhasi. Avyakta, invisible, I am this soul. Achintya, inconceivable, I am this soul. Avikaryaha, unchangeable, I am this soul. Uchyate is said, tasmad, therefore, evam, like this, viditva, knowing it well. Enam, this soul, na, do not, anushochito, may lament over, arhasi, you deserve. So what is Krishna saying? It is said that the soul is invisible, inconceivable, immutable, and unchangeable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body, right? So therefore, finally, Krishna makes the statement that Arjuna, having understood, right, that this soul is invisible, inconceivable, immutable, and unchangeable, don't lament, don't grieve for the body, don't worry for the body. The body will come and go, it's like clothes, but the soul will always remain, will forever remain. It is, the soul is consciousness and is conscious, right? We have to accept it that way. And the supreme conscious source is infinite. The atomic individual soul is infinitesimal, and the entire self-realization, the idea of self-realization is to understand this connection between the atomic soul, which is infinitesimal, to the supreme soul, which is infinite, and that is the science of yoga. So therefore, Krishna is explaining to Arjuna that Arjuna, don't worry, understand that this soul, since nothing happens to this soul, therefore you should not grieve for the body. Alright, to conclude, we looked at 5 verses, roughly four verses today, 21 to 25. But essentially we are reading the nature of the soul, right? That the soul, so finally going back to the idea of the souls, right? It starts with verse number 16, right? So verse number 16 is where Krishna says that the non-existent, that means the body, there is no endurance, and of the existent, that means the soul, there is no cessation, so it does not die. So that's the nature of the soul. Then he further explains what is the nature of the soul. It pervades the entire body. It is consciousness and it is conscious. It is indestructible. No one is able to destroy Arjuna, right? Then what does he say? He says that the body is indestructible. Body is subject to destruction, but the soul is not. The soul is indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal. Then, if you think that the soul kills or gets killed, they don't understand. The soul, somebody situated in knowledge can truly see that the soul is never killed, nor it is engaged in any kind of killing. It is the body, it is the elements engaged with the modes of material nature, and we'll talk about it as we move forward. Therefore, Arjuna, there's no birth and death for the soul. It has always existed, is existing, will continue to be. Unborn, eternal, ever existing. He's not slain when the body is slain. So, you're not killing their spirit actually. You're just facilitating the change in body. Why? Because they're not listening. Why? Because we tried everything and it doesn't work. So therefore we have to do it. So how can a person who knows that soul is indestructible, unborn, eternal, and immutable kill or cause anyone to kill, right, Arjuna? How can it happen when the soul never dies? Then what does he say? It's like garments, Arjuna. Imagine that you're putting on new garments. You give up old ones, you put on new. Similarly, the soul accepts new bodies after it gives up the new ones. After it gives up the old ones. This soul, Arjuna, is never cut by, no weapon can cut the soul, no fire can burn it, no water can moisten it, and no wind can wither it, right? It is unbreakable and it is insoluble. It is not burned nor dried. It is everlasting, all-pervading, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same. Right? Therefore, Arjuna, knowing all of the features of the soul, characteristics of the soul, you should not grieve for the body because you understand that they are not the body. So again, the analytical study of the soul is present here. Krishna explains, and he tries to conclude here, tries to present the nature of the soul. In the next 4 to 5 verses, Krishna finally gives his conclusion to the analytical study, and then he goes into karma yoga. What is the science of karma, right? How does it act and how does it work? So we'll continue that conversation next week. I hope and I pray that every one of you is keeping safe, keeping well, especially in this time of pandemic when new waves and new variants are raging in the world. Please take care of your bodies. Please stay safe. Please take care of your mind. And I hope you also all get a chance to study the Bhagavad Gita on your own and bask in the eternal glory of this spiritual instruction, which helps us see things in its true nature, in its true way, rather than being bewildered by the happenings of the society. Thank you very much. I hope everyone is safe and sound. I will see you all next week. Have a great evening. Good morning to those in India. Hare Krishna.